Hey guys, how's it going? Ed here with another review, and today I'm going to be reviewing Civet by Zoologist. This review is just going to be based off a little 2 ml sample that I got from Bloom Perfumery in Covent Garden in London. I sprayed myself quite liberally in the fragrance, with the fragrance while I was there, and it's something of a beast. So even though I'm just going off the 2 ml sample, I have had a full day's wearing from the full bottle. Also, Bloom Perfumery is amazing. It is one of my favourite places to shop for fragrances in London, and if you're ever in the area, I highly recommend you going there because it's just such a nice place. But anyway, Civet was first launched in 2016, and the perfume behind it is Shelley Waddington. She's also done Hummingbird for Zoologist, but she's probably best known for her own brand, En Voyage Perfumes. Now, the idea behind Zoologist and the concept behind the fragrances are all to do with animals, exploration between the interaction between man and beast, the behavioural patterns of animals, the environments in which they live in, their idiosyncrasies, the way that we associate ourselves and associations attached to animals. And despite the name of the fragrance, this and all the other Zoologist's fragrances don't actually contain any animal-derived musks. They all use synthetic molecules to give an impression of the real thing. Now, as for this fragrance, it is a very rich, complex, bold, perhaps a little bit daring of a composition. When it opens up, it's a little bit animalic. It's floral. There's a bit of a bite to it. There's a slight animalic twang. I get sort of spicy elements. There's a little bit of the Russian leather in there. It is a little bit challenging, and the challenging, I guess, animalic aspects of the fragrance weren't overly apparent to begin with, and certainly not on the blotter. It was only after a while did I kind of detect them, and it's not off-putting. It's not really kind of too in your face. They're very tame and well-rounded. And from there, when it progresses to the mid, I get more of the sort of sweeter, slightly spicy, ever so slightly citric, candied fruit elements. And as the fragrance starts to dry down, those really come to the fore. And the dry down of this fragrance is where the real magic happens, because it's rich, and it's spicy, and it's sweet, and there's a little bit of coffee, there's a little bit of vanilla. This is where the fragrance is at its least animalic. The dry down is the most enjoyable part of the fragrance for me. The dry down lasts for an incredibly long time. The lifespan of the fragrance in total is 20 plus hours. On my skin, I was really impressed with how Civet performed. And when we get to the latter stages of the dry down and into the base, there is an impression that's like used, well, not used, but well-loved old books with a woody nuance thrown in as well. And I guess going back to the dry down, the real meat and potatoes of the fragrance, I guess this is a little bit of an oversimplistic analogy, but to me, what the dry down of Civet smells a little bit like is the filling that goes into a mince pie, specifically the most amazing mince pies in the world, which around Christmas time, from like late November to early January, they're being sold on a little market stall in Cambridge, and these mince pies are just the most amazing, wonderful artisanal mince pies I've ever tasted in my entire life. And the dry down of Civet smells a little bit like the mincemeat used in these mince pies, crossed with Araby by Sergetan. And I definitely think there's a slight Middle Eastern influence to this fragrance. I mean, in terms of, I guess, what this is inspired by, there is a little bit of a sort of an old school floral-ish chypre element to it, I suppose. When it starts off, yes, it is a little bit retro in the opening, and then as it dries down, we get that lovely mid and dry down to the fragrance. It feels a lot more modern, a lot more contemporary. And then when you get to the latter stages of the dry down and the base notes, and we get that sort of feeling of old, well-loved, well-read books with a little bit of a woodsy nuance, and then it feels like we're brought back into the past. But overall, I think this is quite a nice fragrance. As I've already mentioned, for me, the dry down is easily the most enjoyable part of it. It's the part of the fragrance that is the most relatable to, I guess, general populace. It's the part of the fragrance that I was most noticed with, most complimented on, I suppose. Overall, it is quite a daring fragrance. I would certainly not recommend blind buying this. It's definitely something that you have to sniff out before you put down any of your hard-earned cash. In terms of performance, it's a bit of a beast. Like I said, longevity, 20 hours or so, projection, sillage, top-notch, sort of off the charts. Performance from Civet is very impressive. I did like that element of the fragrance. And for cold days like this, for the autumn and the winter, it's great. And as far as did I connect with the image and the story that Shelley Waddington is trying to convey, I suppose so. My slight beef with this fragrance is that I kind of feel like the quality of each note could have been a bit higher. It smells nice, and I guess sometimes it is a little bit difficult to convey the idea of quality because it's quite subjective. In fact, fragrance discourse alone is a huge exercise in subjectivity. But as nice as this is, and it's very well done, very well blended, it is difficult to pick out individual notes, which I think in this case, because it's so complex, is a good thing. But I do wish the quality was a little bit higher, but then I suppose if it was, the price tag would be higher as well. It would reflect that. But it's well done, I think. It's well blended, it's well balanced. There is a sense of harmony that has been achieved despite the complexity to the fragrance and the whole host of notes used within this, which is a good thing. Overall, it's a nice fragrance. Perhaps not for me, though. If there was a fragrance made up entirely of the dry down, I would buy this in a heartbeat. But unfortunately, it's not quite for me, but definitely worth trying, and most certainly try before you buy, because for me this is definitely not a blind buy. But anyway, that's been my slightly rambly review of Civet by Zoologist. Cheers for watching, guys, and take care.